Go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee with Convery, where we caffeinate your curiosity with bold stories, actionable insights, and fresh takes on how we define and design success. Today's guest is a talent acquisition powerhouse, diversity champion, and a connector of people and possibilities. Please welcome Jessie Penman, the talent acquisition advisor at BDC. She's passionate advocate for inclusion, hiring, and living proof that empathy can be a competitive advantage. Jessie doesn't just fill roles, she builds futures. With a career spanning financial services, business development, and recruitment at some of Canada's most recognized organizations, Jessie has made it her mission to create safe spaces where every candidate feels valued, respected, and free from judgment. And as someone living with an invisible physical disability, she brings a personal perspective to breaking down barriers and driving change. If you ever wondered how empathy, transparency, and a sharp eye for talent can transform careers and companies, this episode's for you. Jessie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you. I'm so excited we're doing this today.
Me as well.
Let's start with some rapid fire questions first. What is your superpower?
Yeah, I think I thought about this for a bit. I think listening is probably my superpower, given that I kind of do it for a living, I would say, but I love listening to people's stories as well, which is why I'm a fan of this
Thank
podcast.
you so much. That's amazing. Thank you. Favorite subject in school?
I would say it was probably accounting, believe it or not. I
Oh,
liked working with the
accounting.
numbers. I know it's surprising to
No, I'm just
everybody.
kidding.
I like when the numbers add up. It tells you if you're right or wrong on something. So it was like a comforting subject because you always knew if you were right or wrong based on the balance. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
funny
I wish
enough.
we went to school together because accounting was the subject I had trouble passing. Too bad we weren't in a different life there.
Yes.
We all start somewhere with our first jobs. What was your very first job?
Yeah, my first job was actually at the exhibition, which is going on right now. I was an ice cream person. I scooped ice cream cones for everybody.
I love that. I love that. Now there's so
Yeah,
many crazy ice cream combinations and people trying to do these crazy
I
like
know.
flavor combos at the CNE. It's
Yeah,
like really crazy.
we
Oh my
kept
God.
it simple back then.
Vanilla chocolate strawberry.
Yeah, exactly.
If you had to describe yourself in one word, what would you choose?
I would say this is a tough one. I would say probably organized. If I
Yeah,
had to choose one word, I take pride in how organized I am and
that's
in
fun.
my work and personal life. So yeah, organized probably.
That's awesome. We all could take a chapter out of that book for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your banking to building talent pipelines past here and career change. Your career started taking you from RBC banking roles to recruitment and now to talent acquisition at BDC. What inspired you to make the leap from managing portfolios to managing people's career journeys?
Yeah, I actually get this question a lot. So during my master's program, I actually had a mentor who played a really big role in shaping my career path. I had a strong interest in recruitment really early on, and he advised me to really first gain experience within the business before going over to recruitment. His reasoning was simple but really impactful at that time. To truly understand the profiles and skill sets that we seek in candidates, it's really valuable to have firsthand experience doing that job. So, following that advice from my mentor at the time, I spent about 2.5 years as a business account manager. Um, I really enjoyed the role, creating meaningful relationships with my clients, but recruitment was always in the back of my mind during that time, especially because of an internship I had within talent acquisition prior to that role. So, and then another thing that kind of shaped my pivot into recruitment is thinking back to a recruiter actually who helped me land several internships at RBC at the time. She really believed in me. She made me feel seen and heard. And that experience interacting with her really stuck with me throughout the years. Um, her support was really instrumental in my journey. And I remember thinking like, wow, I really want to do this for other people the way, she made me feel. So that's what really drives me in my work today. Um, Sometimes all it takes is one person to kind of take a chance on you. And I really strive to be that person for other people now.
I love that. You're perfect for that role. You're so perfect for that role. And especially the experience you had with someone who it's not how what people necessarily do, but how you made you feel, right? And the ability that that person had. It's so impactful what recruiters can do for people, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, like, how do you, from transferable skills, thinking about that early customer focused role, how does that influence you with your candidate experiences today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think sometimes people don't think about how similar it is in my role to what I did as a business account manager. Like you still have customers. It's still somewhat of a sales position, in my opinion.
Yep.
So I think the first thing is listening with intent. So I think in the field, I really had to understand my clients' needs at that time, beyond surface level. So it really helped me connect with candidates when I pivoted over to recruitment. You have to ask thoughtful questions, you have to listen to their career goals, and really tailoring that experience to what matters to them the most, similar that you would do with a client as well. So I think asking those deeper questions, not just being satisfied by that surface level response, like really digging deep to understand what motivates them and what success, looks like to them as well. I think follow-up and responsiveness is also a big one. Clients certainly expect timely follow-ups, especially when it comes to an entrepreneur or a business owner. And candidates are the same way. Like this is their livelihood. So responding to people quickly with updates is something that I always strive to do. You really have to put yourself in the client's or the candidate's shoes in both positions that I've done. Um, and then I think a last one, and this is kind of a combination one, but
Hmm.
the relationship first approach combined with like empathy and problem solving in that way. In both roles, challenges come up more than once a day. And whether it's a hiring delay or a scheduling issue, your customer facing experience really teaches you to approach the moments with empathy and understanding, but also having a solutions oriented mindset at the same time. So it's a matter of kind of combining those different skill sets in both of those roles for sure.
Absolutely. And I love that empathy is part of your hiring strategy. I think it's key to point that out. I don't think everyone always approaches it as their mindset or the way of approaching it. But when you lead with empathy and transparency, you said it's central to your approach. Can you maybe help share or walk us through what that looks like in practice from interview to the final offer? Because I think other recruiters could learn from you. I think the candidates could really learn from you. I know students are always nervous about that first interview, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you could share a little bit maybe about how you apply that.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Like you said, it's a big part of my philosophy in recruitment, for sure. So when we speak of like that first initial contact and, first interview, whether it's with the hiring manager or with myself as a pre-screen, I always, initially say to my candidates, look, this is a conversation similar to what you said to me today. You have to do your best to help them shake off those nerves at first.
Yeah.
I think it's a really stressful environment coming in, having to prove yourself to somebody that you don't know at all. So I really try to make candidates feel heard and respected, nodding along with their answers and asking that follow-up to show that you are listening to their answers as well. I think where transparency comes in at that step is by giving them a really clear outline of the role, expectations that we have, and then also the entire hiring process.
Hmm.
I really like to let candidates know what to expect at each stage of the interview process, um, timelines, who they'll be meeting with, and what to prepare with as well. I like to set my candidates up for success because that also impacts our business as well. So I'm kind of the gatekeeper at that stage, but I do like to make sure that I'm being empathetic and not just judging based on that first interaction. Um, and then after that first interview, throughout the other interviews going on, I like to check in regularly, not only with the hiring manager, but the candidate themselves to get their feedback, see how the process is going, if they have any follow-up questions, um, especially when it comes to like accommodations that are needed as well.
Yeah.
I like to make sure that that's something I ask right off the bat. And if it is something they require, I make sure I follow up with hiring managers to make sure that everything is being implemented correctly on our side of things. Um, Transparency on that stage, obviously, it comes to interview feedback. So
Right.
if a candidate is declined at the end of the process, I will certainly make sure that either myself or the hiring manager provide really candid feedback to help them in their future searches.
Yeah.
I like to be positive as well as constructive, of course, but I think it's important to set them up for success in the next application. So you do have to be transparent at that stage, no matter how hard it might be for myself. And the decision, I guess, and the offer stage part, so the wrap up, um, I think accepting a job is a really big life decision, and the process is not over when an offer is sent out. We don't know what the candidate is going to respond with.
That's right.
I really give them space to ask questions, make them feel safe to ask all of the questions they have, and not, try to rush them with that decision. Um, and then transparency, I will make sure that I always walk through the offer details line by line if they need. I never hide any compensation benefits until the end. Like I make sure that they have all of the answers in place so they can reflect and maybe talk with their family about it. And of course, if negotiations are needed at that point, I advocate internally while keeping communication respectful and open on the internal side. Obviously, I represent the company, but I want to make sure that the candidate is also receiving the same amount of, compensation that they deserve as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
So hopefully that answers your
Oh
question.
my gosh, yeah. Like I'm taking some mental notes on how I need to up my game a bit with Jesse's input. So one of the other things I know you've shared that you're living with an invisible disability, and how does that shape your advocacy for diversity and inclusion, which is definitely part of the hiring process? I mean, you talked about accommodations. Sometimes people I found with younger generations that they don't always know what that means, like should I ask for or things like that. But just curious if you could shed a little light on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very open about my disability now. I think growing up I tend to hide it, but
Yeah.
epilepsy, that's the disability I have. It has really taught me that not all challenges are visible. And that when you assume something based on an appearance, that can be really dangerous. Uh, People look at me and probably think I'm just normal. There's no accommodations needed. I think this awareness has driven me to create hiring experiences that are inclusive to all candidates, especially people who are not feeling safe to disclose a disability or needing an accommodation. It can be really scary for people to do that, which I completely understand. Um, I think I also like to advocate for inclusive practices from the start, like offering accommodations, even if people don't ask for them in their job application form, which is where you have the opportunity to disclose it. I do like to ask at the end of my, email inviting people to do the interview. Um, and then challenging stigma as well. I think having epilepsy has taught me that all disabilities are often misunderstood if you don't know enough about them. I think that stigma can also lead to hesitation in the workplace. Like people are afraid to ask questions. They don't know because they don't have it, and it can be scary if you don't know enough about it and you don't
Hmm.
want to approach somebody and ask questions because they might feel uncomfortable. Um, Obviously, I feel comfortable answering questions, but I don't represent all people with disabilities. I think everybody has their own experiences and own preferences with that. I think also when it comes to building trust with both my leaders and candidates, transparency is really important. I like to tell my own story to candidates first, and that often has led to people feeling safe enough to open up about their own experiences.
100%.
So when people ask me, for example, about like the culture at BDC, I always start with, I'm a person with a physical disability, and my favorite thing about this company is their reaction to me telling them about my epilepsy and the accommodations I did need. So I want candidates to feel confident in who they choose as an employer, and I always like to lead with that as well. So, I think that's a big roundabout way of saying
Yeah,
that disability in myself has really taught me to be more patient, more open, and never assume something in somebody else as well.
amazing. Thank you so much for talking through that with us today. It's just really showcases how that whole empathy as a strategy can really help. And I can imagine the candidates that get to meet you and hear your story and work with you for those jobs really feel at peace when they're trying to talk through some things that might be difficult with others. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It means a
Thank
lot.
you, of course.
Um, the art and science, we know it's an art and science of matching talent. Uh, how do you balance the business need for results with the human need for fit and purpose?
Yeah, I think it's a delicate balance in this line of work.
Sure is.
Um, yeah, balancing results with purpose is kind of at the heart of talent acquisition, I would say. My approach really is rooted in understanding the business priorities as well as the human side of each candidate. Like everybody's a person. We can't look at candidates as like a number at the end of the day. I think from like a strategic point of view, I work really closely with my hiring managers who are, quote unquote, my clients,
Yep.
to really understand what success looks like in the role that they're looking to hire for, what outcomes they need in that person that we hire, what gaps we're trying to fill on the existing team that they have, and also how the role fits in with the broader organization goals, I would say as well. Um, I also like to dig deeper into the culture of that specific team. So, although BDC has a specific culture, I think each team has its own environment
Hmm.
that we want to make sure we're hiring the right person to kind of either do a culture ad where, they bring something new to the table or they fit in.
Yep.
Depends on the type of team as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Uh, I think on the human side of it, so not talking about the business objectives now, I prioritize the fit and the purpose by really listening to the candidates' motivations, their values, and also like their long-term career goals. I always make sure no matter what role I interview a person for, I ask what their goals look like for, the next 5, 10 years or so. Um, I want them to know that they're not just taking a job that gives a paycheck, they're accepting a job that is going to help them get towards their long-term goals. Um, I think one common mistake that I've seen, at all of my recruitment positions is narrowing too much on like the perfect candidate for the role
Yep.
rather than the potential of that person. I've seen people pass on candidates because they don't check every box on paper. But in reality, if they have the drive and the growth mindset to kind of learn those skills or adapt to that team, it's it's something that I would take a chance on, but it really depends on the leader themselves and the team as well. I think especially in today's market where you can evolve your skills so accessibly now, like on
Yep.
LinkedIn, you can go
For
on
sure.
Google, like doing all of these free certifications sometimes, like we forget that that also has such value. And we don't just need to look at formal education or formal work experience as well. Um, I think, you just have to give, like I said at the start, you just have to give the right person a chance for them to prove themselves.
I love that you said that because I was gonna ask you and you just answered the question about some
Mm,
common like pitfalls that hiring managers fall into. And I think that you're right on. And then the other thing nowadays is we're all lifetime learners, so we're always learning something new. And if you, I'm preaching to the choir with you, but sharing with the audience, like if you look at hiring someone that has every single thing, w- what's the learning for them to join you, right? Like
And I
it's
think
pretty
even from like
boring.
yeah, and even from a business perspective, if you're hiring somebody who is doing the exact same job at a different company that you want to hire them for, realistically, they're not going to stay in that job for
No,
very long because they've done it before and they're likely going to get bored or think, no, I'm actually ready for that next step up because I've done the exact same work before. So
so true.
it's more of a
Yeah.
strategy thing as well.
It totally is. It totally is. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a yeah, great example. Thanks for sharing that too. And I also
Yeah.
know that you're supporting Canadian entrepreneurs by hiring the talent that drives growth at BDC. How does that mission-driven organization change the way you sometimes recruit?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because obviously BDC we're focused on making the Canadian economy thrive and supporting entrepreneurs. That's at the heart of our business and what we
Yeah.
do. I think, we like to focus on hiring people who are genuinely passionate about this. So sometimes, I'm in interviews and people share personal stories about businesses that they've started when they were in university, for example. I think hiring people who are equally as passionate is something I look for because everybody I've met at my organization, including myself, is very passionate about our mission at the heart of it. I also think, sales, especially in the context of supporting small business owners, is deeply relationship driven. So during interviews, like the way it impacts my recruitment is I make it a priority to understand the motivation of why BDC over the other banks because, we are a bank, but we're a different kind of bank. And candidates have a lot of options in the financial industry.
Yeah.
Even if it's not one of the big five banks, there are other options as well. So that's one major thing I like to dig deep into during my interview because people who are passionate about our mission are more likely to stay with us long term, I would say. Money is important, culture is important, but myself, I like to know that I'm contributing to a positive mission within the organization. Especially right now, what's, going on with the whole trade war stuff.
Oh,
I do take a lot of pride in working for my organization at this point.
good for you. That's amazing. They're lucky to have you. So leaning into the listeners, which a big portion of the listeners for Coffee with Convery are students or early career professionals, and they always, and they're probably chomping at the bit for me to ask this question so that they can figure out how they connect with recruiters like yourself. But what advice do you have for them trying to break into these competitive fields? And I'll say two-parter. And what's one thing they should stop doing interviews and start doing? Because I think hearing from a recruiter, this is key for them. So yeah, what do they need to do to break in, and what should they maybe stop doing and start
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a question I get a lot at events
doing?
too.
Yeah, I bet. I bet.
It's questions I asked when I was a student. Like
That's
it's
right.
it's always top of mind for sure. Um, I think the biggest thing that I can recommend is seek out mentors and connect with people that are working in a field that is genuinely of interest to you or inspires you. The insights that I've gained over the years from hearing other people's stories, including yourselves, Brian, has been really instrumental in shaping my own career. You don't have to listen or follow every piece of advice that a mentor gives you. Everybody's different, of course, but there's so much to learn from their own experiences, successes, and even their setbacks or failures, because that is in itself a learning opportunity. I would not be here today, I'm sure of it, without the support I had from my mentors over the year. It's really, challenged me. It's made me think about things differently. And, mentorship isn't about having all the answers, really. It's about expanding your perspective because everybody
Mm,
has different, you know, value to add to your own journey for sure. To answer your second piece of the question, something that I would stop doing, it's a really good question. And I know my answer right away because I give this answer to everybody. stop saying phrases in interviews like, oh, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door, or this role will be a stepping stone. Um, I think while these phrases are well intentioned in interviews, they can unintentionally signal a lack of long-term interest in a role or a company,
Mhm.
especially from a recruiter standpoint. I think you should, instead of saying that, focus on what excites you about the role and how it aligns with your own growth. They really like employers, and I think I can speak for all employers really. They want to see that you've invested in the opportunity and you're not just using it as like a temporary move to end up somewhere else kind of thing. So that's something I would stop doing
Yep.
and start doing. I would start treating interviews as a two-way conversation or almost a two-way interview. You're obviously being interviewed by the company, but this is your chance to interview them as well. I think asking thoughtful questions about the team, the leadership style, growth opportunities, those are always a really great thing to do in the interview process. Show them that you're evaluating fit just as much as they are. It not only demonstrates confidence, in my opinion, but it really helps you make informed decisions if you would to be, receiving an offer at the end of it. So that would
That's
be
good
what I would
advice.
I would start doing. Yeah.
That's great advice. The other day I was interviewing, and at the beginning I said, look, I have your resume, I have your cover letter. This is your chance to come alive beyond the piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I think too often we're nervous or we don't know how to be ourselves in a professional. And I'm like, no, I want you to be yourself. Like, I want, like, recruiters are here to help you get a job. We're not here to,
Yeah.
we're not here to stop you getting a job. We just want to make sure it's that you and the company are going to make a nice, whatever, lack of a marriage together, whatever you want to call it. But I love that
Yeah.
you said that because it is, don't just start reading from your resume and like, no, I did that already. Right. So,
Yeah.
really good advice,
Absolutely.
Jesse. I really believe like that. I can't believe we're getting close to the end because I'm so enjoying this conversation.
Me too.
If you had like one big takeaway, I know that's a tough one because it's a lot of different levels of people possibly listening, but what would be like maybe an unforgettable insight about career hiring that maybe people don't think about or whatever you want to
Yeah.
share? Yeah.
That's a great question. I think it is tough because, people are at different levels of their career, but I think something that would hopefully apply to everybody who's listening is never underestimate the power of confidence. This is something I've taught at a lot of my presentations and workshops. Confidence, in my opinion, is not something that you're born with. It is a skill that you develop over time through experience. So for me, confidence did not come naturally. 5 years ago, even, I struggled with like self-doubt. You would not be able to see me presenting in front of an audience. That is not something that I ever sought out myself. It petrified me. But through small, you know, goal setting, doing small achievable goals along the way, stepping outside my comfort zone and taking it back to my mentor, like leaning on my mentor for guidance there, I gradually built that confidence up. Um, Sometimes confidence also means like showing up even when you're unsure.
Hmm.
I truly believe that faking it until you make it is like something I live by. If you show up and pretend to be confident, people won't know the difference between acting and that's just who you are. So after, a certain amount of time of pretending that I was this confident, bold person, it
It
eventually
happened.
started to become my, reputation. And then
Yeah.
because of that positive feedback and reinforcement, you start to actually naturally get those skills. And now it's almost my default. So I think it's important to remember that when you're working on your confidence, like everything or everyone brings something unique to the table as well.
Yeah.
Once you identify your own value proposition and start building your own personal brand around it, you become not just a candidate to companies, but like a force to be reckoned with. So when you know your worth and you communicate it with conviction and clarity, you can really become unstoppable for sure.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. This has been so much fun and it's so good to see you. And I know for some of the listeners, like when I met you when you were students, this is even more fun to see you
Yeah, I
thriving in
know.
the role, and which makes it special. Even as a recruiter myself, I get pride out of seeing the people I've seen recruited and going on and doing great things like you're doing. You're doing great stuff. So thank you so much for being a part of the podcast, and looking forward
Yeah.
to grabbing that real coffee in person soon.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Of course. No, thank you.
To all our listeners, if today's episode sparked a thought, share it with someone you know. Subscribe to the podcast, follow us on Instagram for more stories that stir both your head and your heart. This is Coffee with Convery, where we remind you that success isn't always about climbing the corporate ladder, but it sometimes comes from building your own jungle gym.